In 1989, Japan was the most feared economy on Earth. Japanese companies were buying American landmarks. Sony bought Columbia Pictures. Mitsubishi bought Rockefeller Center. Japanese real estate was so valuable that the grounds of the Imperial Palace in Tokyo were worth more than the entire state of California. Economists predicted Japan would overtake America as the world's #1 economy by 2000. And then, in 1 year, everything collapsed. What followed was 30 years of economic stagnation so severe they called it the lost decades. And right now, in 2026, America is showing the exact same warning signs that Japan showed in 1989. The same debt levels, the same asset bubbles, the same political dysfunction, the same demographic crisis. Japan's story is not ancient history. It is America's future, if America doesn't learn the lesson. Today, we go through every single warning sign and what you can do to protect yourself. To understand the warning, you need to understand Japan's rise. After World War II, Japan rebuilt itself into an economic miracle. By the 1980s, Japan was the world's second largest economy, manufacturing powerhouse, technology leader. Their companies dominated electronics, automobiles, and semiconductors. Sound familiar? And then came the bubble. Cheap money from the Bank of Japan flooded into real estate and stocks. The Nikkei stock index went from 6,000 in 1980 to nearly 39,000 by December 1989. Japanese real estate prices tripled in a decade. Banks lent recklessly. Companies borrowed excessively. Everyone assumed prices would rise forever. And in late 1989, the Bank of Japan raised interest rates sharply to cool inflation. That single decision popped the biggest asset bubble in modern history. The Nikkei crashed 60% over the next 2 years. Real estate fell 70 to 80% and never fully recovered. Banks were left holding trillions in bad debt. And the lost decade. Here's the first warning sign that directly mirrors America today. After Japan's bubble burst, the government made a catastrophic decision. Instead of letting failing banks and companies collapse, they kept them alive with government bailouts. These became known as zombie banks and zombie companies, banks that were technically bankrupt but kept open by government support, companies that couldn't pay their debts but kept alive by cheap loans. Here's why this was devastating. Zombie banks stopped lending to new, innovative businesses because their books were already full of bad loans they couldn't admit were worthless. So Japan's economy froze. New businesses couldn't get funding, old dying businesses survived artificially. Innovation stopped, productivity collapsed. And here's the American parallel. After 2008, America bailed out every major bank. After COVID, trillions in stimulus kept zombie companies alive. The St. Louis Federal Reserve warned as recently as 2026, America is closer to a Japanese-style outcome than at any time. Warning sign number 2, the debt spiral. Japan's response to economic stagnation was to borrow and spend, over and over again, for 30 years. The result? Japan now has the highest debt-to-GDP ratio of any major economy on Earth, at approximately 260% of GDP. Let that sink in. Japan owes 2.6 times its entire annual economic output. Every year, Japan spends a massive chunk of its budget just paying interest on old debt. Sound familiar? America's debt-to-GDP ratio has exploded from 30% in 1980 to 122% today, growing toward 150% within the decade, according to the CBO. America's national debt just crossed $39 trillion. Interest payments are now consuming more of the federal budget than defense spending. Here's the key lesson from Japan. Once you enter the debt spiral, it is almost impossible to escape without severe economic pain. Japan has been trapped for 35 years, and they're still not out. Warning sign number 3, demographics. This might be the most frightening parallel of all. Japan has the oldest population of any major country on Earth. Today, 30% of Japan's population is over 65. By 2060, that number reaches 40%. Japan's population is shrinking. They lose 1.1% of their working age population every single year. Fewer workers means less production. Less production means lower GDP growth. And here's the devastating math. Fewer workers supporting more retirees means social security systems collapse, pension funds go broke, healthcare systems are overwhelmed. Sound familiar? America's median age is rising rapidly. The baby boomer generation, 76 million people, are all retiring now. By 2030, all baby boomers will be over 65. Social Security is projected to face a funding shortfall by 2033. America is not as old as Japan yet, but America is on the same demographic path, just 20 to 30 years behind.
Warning sign number 4. Deflation. The word most Americans have never heard, but the economic disease that destroyed Japan for 30 years. From 1995 to 2025, Japan's nominal GDP actually fell from $5.55 trillion to $4.27 trillion. The economy shrank in dollar terms over 30 years. Real wages fell 11% over that same period. Here's how deflation works. When prices fall, consumers wait to buy things because they'll be cheaper tomorrow. When consumers wait, companies sell less. When companies sell less, they cut wages and investments. When wages are cut, consumers spend even less. It becomes a self-reinforcing spiral downward. Japan's companies hoarded cash, stopped investing, stopped hiring. The entire economy went into suspended animation for 3 decades. Right now, in America, with the AI revolution potentially crushing prices across many sectors, the Fed is nervously watching for signs of deflation, and the $39 trillion debt makes fighting deflation almost impossible without creating other crises.
Warning sign number 5. Real estate. Japan's real estate bubble was the centerpiece of its collapse. Tokyo property prices fell 70 to 80% from their 1989 peak and never fully recovered. In many parts of Japan, property values are still below their 1989 levels, 37 years later. People who bought property at the peak in 1989 are still underwater today. Entire neighborhoods became ghost towns as Japan's shrinking population abandoned rural areas. Now look at America. The S&P Case-Shiller Home Price Index is at all-time highs in 2026. American home prices have risen 47% since 2020 alone. Mortgage rates at 7% have made homes the most unaffordable in 40 years. And here's the parallel that should terrify every American homeowner. Japan's real estate bubble was fueled by cheap money and the assumption that prices always rise. Sound exactly like America from 2020 to 2026? Japan thought the same thing, right until the moment it wasn't true anymore. Counter-argument. America is not Japan, and there are real differences that could save America from Japan's fate. Difference 1. Innovation. America has Silicon Valley, AI leadership, the world's best universities, and a culture of entrepreneurship that Japan never had. Japan's companies became rigid and hierarchical. America's tech sector constantly reinvents itself. Difference 2. Immigration. Japan has one of the most restrictive immigration policies on Earth. Its population is shrinking with no solution. America can compensate for demographic decline through immigration. Millions of working-age immigrants enter America every year, keeping the workforce growing. Difference 3. The dollar. America issues the world's reserve currency. This gives America a unique ability to borrow at lower rates than any other country, something Japan never had to the same degree. These differences are real. They are powerful, but they are not guarantees. They are advantages, only if America uses them wisely. And right now, America is not using them wisely. Here's the bottom line. Japan was the most feared economy on Earth in 1989. 35 years of stagnation, deflation, debt, aging population, and zombie companies later, Japan's GDP is smaller today than it was in 1995. The warning signs Japan showed in 1989, asset bubbles, record debt, demographic decline, zombie institutions, America is showing every single one of them in 2026. America has advantages Japan didn't: innovation, immigration, the dollar. But advantages only work if used wisely, and the clock is running. Subscribe because next week we're breaking down the exact investments that protected wealth during Japan's lost decades and how to apply those lessons to America in 2026. You do not want to miss that one. Here's the bottom line. Japan was the most feared economy on Earth in 1989. 35 years of stagnation, deflation, debt, aging population, and zombie companies later, Japan's GDP is smaller today than it was in 1995. The warning signs Japan showed in 1989, asset bubbles, record debt, demographic decline, zombie institutions, America is showing every single one of them in 2026. America has advantages Japan didn't: innovation, immigration, the dollar. But advantages only work if used wisely, and the clock is running. Subscribe because next week we're breaking down the exact investments that protected wealth during Japan's lost decades and how to apply those lessons to America in 2026. You do not want to miss that one.